Let's begin by making a campfire picture. Now, as you get started today, let's start out by painting our background, what everything's going to get glued down to. Begin by putting your name on the back, and on the front side, let's begin by taking our colors that we'll be using for our sky. You'll notice I started out with a white circle using a nice big paintbrush and without washing my brush. I'm never washing it. I'm just going to go ahead, dip it into the blue. It's okay if it gets onto the painting mat because my end in mind is I want to get that whole thing filled with paint. It's okay for the whites and the blues to mix together for that nice moonlight that you can see from the moon. And now I'm getting into a solid blue. I just keep dipping that brush into the blue and completely covering the page. Again, don't worry about it getting off into the painting mat. That's what it's there for. The end of this project, you don't want to have any of it white left over without any paint on it. Now I'm dipping it into the black and getting all of my corner places painted in and all of it making it look like a nighttime sky. So as I finish painting this, I'm going to then take it off to the side and let that dry. Now once it's dried, let's go ahead and start making it look like some of those trees, those evergreen tall trees that are reaching up towards the sky. If I was on the ground looking up, what would I see? Maybe some of those forest type trees. So I'm just starting out with a light green oil pastel with a vertical line going up towards the sky. And then notice the direction of my lines with my oil pastel. It almost reminds me of going diagonally one side and the opposite diagonal on the opposite side. It almost looks like an arrow, doesn't it? An arrow on one side and an arrow on the opposite side repeated again and again. Once I've done the light green, I'm moving into a dark green to create more depth, to make my trees look more 3D, to give it more value ranges. So I'm just going to go ahead and overlap my oil pastels of the light green, the dark green. I'm going to grab my brown oil pastel and give it more of a tree trunk. I think that these are starting to look more realistic, aren't they? I'm going to go back with a little bit of black also, again, for that idea of value, making these trees look a little bit more 3D, giving it a little bit more definition, and making it look awesome. Okay, now for another little tip that you can try as well. I grabbed a yellow chalk pastel, putting a little dot and taking my finger, I'm letting it kind of smear into the background. Kind of looks like fireflies, you know, that you catch in the middle of the night, or maybe even some nighttime stars in the sky. It's up to you. Let's go into now making some s'mores. Grabbing my two pieces of paper, my tag board. I'm going to put my name on it just to make sure that we get mine back. Now, as you've gotten your paper, again, grab some paint, a sponge, and start dipping it into the yellow, white, and brown paint. As you dip it, the sponge's job is to dab the texture onto the tag board. Dab it. You're not swiping it. You're not using the sponge as you normally would to wipe down a table. Instead, you're using the sponge to dab the colors of paint to create a texture to make it look like a graham cracker. Now, as you're setting that off to the side, also grab a paintbrush. This paintbrush can be used to make it look like a graham cracker. The line that divides the two parts of the graham cracker, I'm just going to use a dashed or a dotted line. And then using the end of my paintbrush, it'll allow me to make some circles for the holes that are in the graham cracker. Boy, I can't believe this is made out of cardboard. It's already starting to look like a real graham cracker. Now, as that's setting off to the side to dry, grab your white piece of paper and begin by cutting the corners of your paper off. This is going to be used as the big marshmallow that's on the inside of our s'more. Now grabbing my chalks again, my brown and a little bit of black, and I'm smearing those together to make it look like it's roasted or it's already starting to melt a little bit. So just using my finger and those colors, I'm just going to try to make that marshmallow look a little bit more 3D to make it look like it's been really close to a campfire and it's about ready to be eaten. Now before we put this together, grab a brown oil pastel. The brown oil pastel is going to be the chocolate that's melting onto the marshmallow. I left the top part white because that's where I'm going to glue down the graham cracker. Now that I've got my chocolate that's oozing down onto my marshmallow, I'm going to outline it with black just to define it a little bit more, to make it look a little bit more like a dark chocolate. And then I'm going to give my marshmallow a really cool face that I'm going to add onto my project as well. That's an optional step. I just thought it was kind of fun to throw in. Lastly, let's go ahead and grab our glue bottle and assemble our s'more together. Using the top part of the tag board and the bottom part of the tag board, let's assemble this together to make it look like a three-dimensional s'more. Okay, on to the last little bit of our project, starting to make a look like a fire camp down at the bottom. I took some pieces of tissue paper, yellow, oranges, and reds are warm colors, and started twisting those together and gluing them down onto the paper. I'm also going to start assembling these pieces together. I went outside and I grabbed some sticks and I'm going to start gluing those down onto the bottom of my paper. Can you see how this is going to start to look? Now, take that to Mrs. Foxen so I can hot glue that on. Lastly, grabbing some pieces of cotton, get those hot glued onto a piece of stick. Using some chalk dust, I'm placing my chalk dust onto the cotton ball. This helps it make it look like the marshmallows are starting to get roasted. There. I love the way this is starting to look. Okay, now that my marshmallows are ready, let's assemble it all together. Thanks for watching and happy art making!